Okay, so welcome everyone. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Caroline Collins and I'm the Partnership Director at Enactus UK. So it is my role within the Enactus UK organisation to really look after our 17 corporate sponsors. You can see one of them already on the screen, which is Moy Park, and really make sure that we're given as many opportunities for you as Enactus students to help you with your graduate careers or your placement careers. So this is a really good opportunity to ask me any questions that you might have about video interviewing. The benefit of my role is that I do have a great oversight into all of our different partner application processes. So if you do have anything that comes to mind, then please do let me know. Or alternatively, you're welcome to email me or connect with me on LinkedIn after the session. Okay, so just as a little bit of an overview for this session, let's see, there we go. I've kind of done a brief plan. However, my presentations don't always go to plan, so the timings might fluctuate a little bit, especially because there is only a few of us in the session. So we are going to be understanding the video process in general, and how to present using the STAR technique, which you may or may not be familiar with, but we'll also be providing an insight into what Moy Park specifically are looking for from their candidates. However, most of this session I'm hoping will be kind of flexible into whatever video interview process that you're currently going through. The aim is that you'll be able to be better equipped and confident when completing these video interviews to ensure that you're really successful in your approach in gaining these graduate and placement roles. Okay, so we'll get started. Now, I think this is kind of maybe something that we can use. It's a good tool for an anonymous feedback, and I can see there are only a couple of you on this session. So if you haven't used Slido before, please do head to slido.com or scan in the QR code, and it'll kind of ask you a question to say, like, what would you like to understand from this session? Again, this is just to help me to work out if there's anything that you're concerned about, if there's anything that you're particularly interested in knowing. So please do head to slido.com and type in the code, which is #videointerview, or just scan the QR code. Okay. I've got one question there. Anybody else? Good to know types of questions and do's and don'ts and how to be successful. Hopefully these will be beneficial, and we'll be through there. Okay, we'll move on, but if you do have anything else, just please do pop it in the chat and we can go from there. Okay, so just to get a bit of an understanding, there are often two types of video interviews. So the first type is live. So that's really similar to kind of a Zoom call that we're on now. It's like a face-to-face interview, and you'll probably be speaking to an interviewer in real time over Zoom, over Microsoft Teams, kind of whichever platform that organization uses. Or there is the one-sided or the pre-recorded interviews. So this, in this scenario, you'll be presented with a pre-recorded or even written questions on screen. You then may be given kind of 1 minute to prepare an answer to that, and then it will start recording for a set amount of time, often 2.5 minutes, maybe a little bit shorter, and that's kind of your interview. This is the type of interview that we will be focusing on today, and it is the one that Moy Park uses alongside a couple of other graduate recruiters. So that's the one that we'll go in depth to today. Okay, so what is your biggest concern about video interviews? So please do head to Slido again. I promise you this is the last Slido that we will be using. But again, I'd just like to understand kind of what's our big worry, what's our big concern about them? Anyone have any suggestions? Any ideas? Okay, you can see it already on the screen there. We've got coming across positively. I think that's quite a valid concern, slipping up on words, interruption of network connection. Again, these are all really, really valid kind of worries. And it is difficult to have a video interview because you don't get that interaction anymore. You can't rely on other people, but I'm sure that we'll be able to kind of go over these, and hopefully we'll cover a few of these as we go on into the session. But thank you for participating in those. It's good for me to know where the awareness is. Okay, so preparation. Let's think about those first kind of questions, those worries about slipping up on words, kind of worried about if you're coming across positively. So some of the key things that we can do to make sure that we feel really, really confident in this video interview is to prepare. So the first one is dressing appropriately. Now, it might seem a little bit strange to start with this one, but you'll be surprised about how, if you are dressed appropriately, if you are dressed in your interview clothes, you automatically go into that mindset. And it can have benefits such as feeling more confident, but it also is a great first impression to have for that interviewer. So making sure you feel confident, you feel professional in the clothes that you're in the interview will go a long way to helping you mentally prepare. Okay, environment. So this is one of the key things that are often forgotten by students is, have you thought about where you're going to do the interview? Have you got a plain background behind you? Have you got a well-lit area, or are you doing it at midnight when it's really dark and you're just relying on kind of a dodgy bulb in your bedroom? But also, will there be any distractions? So if you're doing it at the same time as the bin men come in every week, it's probably not the best time. But also, have you told that your student flatmates, have you told your family that you're about to do a video interview and that they need to keep it down? So all these things that could go a long way to distracting you, you can help prevent by just doing that little bit of preparation before. And then notes. Now, I think notes is a little bit of a do's or don'ts. Like, do you want to bring notes, like, so you feel more prepared, or will bringing notes distract you if you don't stick to them? Now, I think doing the preparation goes a long way. I would always say, like, and we'll talk about that in the presentation a little bit later, is how important it is to prepare and be aware of what questions you could be asked. But also, you don't want to rely on that. So if you hear, I don't know, like a piece of paper rustling, you like, it's really, really, really distracting, and you want to try and keep it as natural as possible. So maybe keep them in your eye line. The benefit of it being virtual, you can pin things behind your laptop if there's anything key areas, but you don't want to be keep looking it up like that, because it can be really distracting, because there will be somebody watching this on the other side. It won't be live when you're doing it, but a couple of hours, a day later, they'll be watching that. And if all they're thinking about is, why do their eyes keep going up? They won't be focusing on the answers that you're giving. Okay, and then if your network goes down. Now, I know this is kind of the fear for everybody. It's always a fear for me when I'm delivering these sessions is, oh my goodness, will my internet hold out? It happens, it is natural. One thing we can do to avoid that is, again, logging on a little bit earlier. Like, the benefits of a video interview, especially with Moy Park, you'll get like 24 hours, 48 hours to complete it. So you can do it in your own time, but I would say, like, check your tech first. Like, do you have a webcam that's good enough? Like, or do you need to borrow a friend's? Like, does your laptop connect well to the platform that they're using? These are the things that we kind of want to think about before, so we're not worrying about them during the interview. But of course, if the inevitable does happen, and if it does, like, your internet just crashes and you can't like go anywhere, make sure you pick up the phone and ring them. Like, ring or email them and say, look, like, I tried my best, I prepared, but my internet connection just went down. We had a power cut. You'll notice on the video it's only a minute when it should be 2 minutes. Please, could I record this again? Like, if you don't ask, you don't know. They might say, like, no, but don't worry, we'll kind of view it with like mitigative circumstances, or yes, of course, absolutely, you can record from the point that you stopped. So just make sure that you're proactive in saying things. If something does go wrong, make sure you get in contact with your employer that you're applying for. And then research. So again, I know I've talked about this before, but have you researched your employer? And have you researched the role? A little bit of knowledge about the sector that we'll go into shortly will go a long way, and it will show that you are so positive, you're so enthusiastic about what you're going to do. And I always think research for me goes into those two categories, the employer and the role. So for the employer, look at the sector that they operate in. Like, what's going on in the news, what's happening, like what are their challenges, who are their competitors, have they recently been bought by somebody, have they recently bought another company. Like, make sure you look at their major projects, their company culture and their values. So they're really, really important, that you want to portray the company culture and the values within your answers. But it also goes a long way to demonstrate your interest. If you can weave in, oh, I can see that, you've recently taken on this project, or wow, I'm really impressed with your corporate social responsibility initiatives, and this is why I've applied for your organization. So just those small things that you can reference shows your enthusiasm and shows your positivity. So make sure you're thinking about that before you go into the interview. And then the role itself. So just before, when you're doing your preparation, just reread the job spec again. Make sure you're really familiar with it. If you've done an application, which I know you probably won't have done for Moy Park because you fast track straight through to the video interview, but for other organisations, if you have done a written application, just refamiliarize yourself with it, just to double check, oh, that is what I wrote, because it could have been that you wrote it a month ago and I couldn't tell you what I wrote a day ago. So unless your memory is a lot more incredible than mine, just make sure you're really familiar with it and explain why you want the job, how you understand the role, and more importantly, how you're the best candidate. So these are the things that you really need to be thinking about before you pick up your laptop and start that video interview, just to make sure that you are as confident as you possibly can be, to feel as though that you're really prepared for that. Okay. So welcome if you just joined us. We are recording the session, so if you have missed those little first bits, then do not worry, we'll pop it onto our Enactus UK YouTube channel for you to catch up with. Okay, so we've done what we're doing before the interview. Now we're going to move on to during the interview. So during the interview, now Moy Park and the Enactus partnership is now a couple of years old, and we've learned from kind of the feedback that Moy Park has given. And these are some of the key points that they've said that last year's cohort kind of fell at the first hurdle at. So smile. Now, it seems a little bit silly that this is one of them, but it's really, really important that you're coming across positive, you're coming across enthusiastic, you're excited about the role. But also, if you're smiling, you automatically appear more joyful, you feel more excited, and you feel a little bit more confident. So instantly, when you're talking and you're smiling, it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable and settled and relaxed. That is also a top tip that I would pass on to you if you ever do a telephone interview. Make sure you're smiling. I know nobody can see you and you might feel a little bit strange or a little bit silly, but the joy and the enthusiasm of you smiling comes across through the phone and you sound instantly more engaged. So that's the one tip that you remember and one tip you take away. Make it sure it's that one. And if it's not that, it's eye contact and body language. Now, eye contact, you're probably thinking, Caroline, it's a video interview, there's nobody going to be there. Yet, granted, fully take your point, but make sure you're looking into the camera. So just like when you're taking a selfie, your eyes automatically go to the tiny little circle camera. Make sure you're doing that too when you're talking about it. And it might be that you can't maintain that focus the whole time, and that's absolutely fine, but making sure that you're looking as though you're engaged, you're talking into the camera, can be really, really important. And then also body language kind of fits into that. So imagine that you are talking to somebody on the other side of this. I know I can't see any of your faces on this, but I'm imagining that you're kind of all there, you're all listening, hopefully engaged, and that you've not gone off to make a cup of tea, or if you have, you're making another one and sending one to me. But making sure that you are kind of really engaged, you're leaning forward and you're not slouched, you're not kind of looking as though you're not really bothered, you're not interested, you're automatically like, oh, I don't want to do this. So make sure you're sitting up, your shoulders are back, and you feel as though you're engaged. I know I talk with my hands, you probably noticed them doing all sorts of things, but that can be another example of how you are trying to imagine that there's somebody there to make sure that you're more engaged, or you look more engaged. And then alongside that, articulate, making sure you're speaking really, really clearly. If you're mumbling like this, nobody's want to, like, if you drop your volume, if you start mumbling, you can't hear what you're saying. So making sure you're really clear, you're really concise in your answers, just to make sure that you are coming across the best that you can be. And then positivity and enthusiasm. So again, first impressions count. This is your first chance. You have to impress them at the video interview for you then to be invited to their assessment centre. So you kind of need to pull out all the stops for this. Imagine this is your last chance and your only chance to impress them. And it is, because otherwise you won't get to the next stage. So bring everything that you've got. You need to be at your 110% level. And then camera on. Now, this is such a like surprising feedback that I got from Moy Park last year, was that a lot of people, when they were doing the video interview, didn't turn their camera on. It's a video interview for a reason, otherwise it would be a telephone interview. So please make sure your camera's on, and hopefully I'm not it's nothing new that I'm telling you here, but just to reiterate the importance of turning your camera on during the interview. And then we talked a little bit about notes. So again, they're so important to helping you prepare so you feel more confident, but please don't rely on them when you're discussing your kind of video interview. You have such a short window, you have such a short time frame to give your answer. There's nothing worse if you're just sat there reading notes like this. Again, like, try and, if you need them desperately, pin some maybe like keywords behind where your camera will be, but don't rely on them. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far? Please do pop them in the chat if you do. Otherwise, I'll just assume that you're following, you're along for the ride, and we'll keep going. Okay, great. So we're going to go on to the STAR technique. So we talked about what questions could be asked by Moy Park. Now, there will be the standard questions, and they might change them a little bit this year, of kind of why did you apply for the role? What interests you about Moy Park? What are you most excited by? And there may be some kind of competency questions. And the competency questions are your opportunity to kind of wow the interviewer. So this is your opportunity. And these questions could be, describe a time when you have worked as a team, or can you tell me about when you utilize your communication skills? So they're ones where the employer is asking for an example, ones where you think, oh, this will be even better if I can, without me going, oh yeah, I've worked as a team, or yeah, of course I've got communication skills. Nobody's really bought into that. But if I say, like, of course, now let me tell you about this job, or let me tell you about when I worked in my Enactus team as a project lead, or as part of the project team. Now, there was me and 5 other people, so it's already, you're buying into the story. So how you can best do that to make sure that you're keeping really, really concise is by using the STAR technique. So as you can see on the screen, you can see the situation, task, action, and result. So these are your 4 key points that you need to include. Now, remember, with the video interview with Moy Park, you will kind of get 30-second preparation time, and then it'll be where you get the question for you to think about the answer. And then it'll be straight into that question. And there's nothing more unnerving than seeing the timer go down, or if it just cuts out completely. So really think about, and this goes into your practice, really think about how you can get some great examples, but that are really concise. So when you're doing your preparation, and I would recommend using your university careers website, because they'll have practice interview questions. I'd recommend using Prospects. So that's Prospects. They'll also have lots of different questions that you can practice for that are transferable to lots of different roles. So again, use those, kind of come with, and this goes into your preparation, make sure you've got like at least 10 or 15 questions for everything. So whether that is about like your strengths, your weaknesses, whether that's a couple of competency-based ones, but that preparation will really help you. And even if it doesn't come up in this video interview, it might come up later down the line or with another job. So always useful to prepare. So the S, situation. This is when you want to introduce the story. So you want to kind of set the scene. So task. Now this is when you describe the task that you need to carry out. So you set the scene, you said where it is, what the background is, and now you've said, like, this is what we have to do. And then the action. So you've told us where it's happening. You've told us what needs to be done. Now you need to say what you did specifically. So there is nothing more important than when you are giving these interview questions, you talk about what you did. So they're interviewing you as an individual. They don't want to hear, oh, we then did this, then we did that. They want to hear what your influence was, not the influence of the wider team. So take that ownership. Say, oh yeah, at this point, I did this, and then I went on to do that. As a team, I was responsible for. So can you see that like confidence in the language, rather than saying like, oh, we planned this session and then we delivered it. It's, I planned this session with my team and this was the point that I delivered. So it gives a really good kind of determination, enthusiasm. So important to know what you did, because we're interviewing you, not your team. And then finally, your result. So you want to end with, and a so what. So you set the scene, you told what needed to be done, you said what you did. What was the outcome? Like, did it lead to 5 people kind of attending the session and then they went on to apply for this job? Like, did it end up with you getting the outcome that you needed? And if you can quantify your result, so if you can add a bit of a number on it, even better. So if you can say this led to X amount of people doing this, if this led to X% of whatever, it helps your interviewer quantify your success. So again, it's a really, really great skill to learn, a great skill to have if you can start to do that now. So sometimes I find it really difficult to think about these things theoretically. So I've just provided a little bit of an example to how you might utilize a STAR technique. So again, this could be, can you tell me about a time where you took the lead on a project? Or can you tell me about a time you were really proud of your motivation and communication skills? So we've set the situation. In my Enactus team as a HR lead, I noticed there was really low student engagement in the projects. So you set the scene. That's all you needed. Quite short, quite concise task. I took ownership of this to understand how to increase engagement with our current members and invite new students to join us. Okay, so what was the action? I used my determination and initiative to ask every member how I could get them to be more engaged and what they would like to see in the society. Okay, so what? I developed a calendar of social events, opportunities for our students to develop their employability skills, and I ran a monthly drop-in session for students to share their worries, which resulted in a 78% retention of members. That means that you kept the members, and you increased your new membership by 30%. So can you see how much more effective that is, because we've added those numbers and we've taken the time to work out those. So it gets really kind of, I hope that helps put it into context. It's quite a short example, but you can see how it really follows that set structure. And these are the questions that Moy Park would be interested in learning about. It's worth noting that even if they say a question that doesn't start with a describe this or can you tell me about this, it's always great if you can add examples into your questions, no matter where they are. So one to think about when you are doing that preparation. And it's also worth noting that the kind of yellow bits that you can see, so the yellow font, they're 2 of Moy Park's values. So one of the really important things is when you are doing your interviews is that you're putting in values of the organisation and putting in that kind of awareness, because it shows in quite a soft way that you've done the research. So any way that you can bring in the company's values or the company's like core competencies, or kind of when you do your research you keep seeing this word coming up again and again and again, that's what you need to think about when you're populating your examples, because it makes them like 10 times more effective. And again, it shows that you know what you're talking about. Okay, do we have any questions so far before we move on? No? Okay, we'll get cracking. So, like I just talked about, these are the values of Moy Park. So it's always helpful to kind of put what we've learned, we've talked about that preparation, we've talked about the STAR technique, and putting that into kind of context, in kind of action, into Moy Park. So as you can see, these are their values. And again, it's learning about them as well. So for me, my understanding of availability may be very different to Moy Park's understanding of availability. So making sure that you spend time researching each of these values and then thinking about, okay, how have I shown my availability? So has there been a point when somebody's asked you to do something last minute and you've had to change your plans to accommodate them? That's probably an example of availability. Like you've gone, yeah, absolutely no problem, but it's also an example of your flexibility and adaptability. And then for discipline, so again, have you achieve something in a really tight time frame, or have you been able to juggle loads of things? So you're Enactus students, you're already juggling working in your Enactus team, doing your projects alongside your university degree. So again, that shows your discipline, it shows your time management skills, and again, determination. So are you really driven to succeed? These are the things that we want to think about, how we can get them into lots of different answers and lots of different questions when, so you feel really prepared. Okay, I noticed that in the questions that we had right at the start, one of the questions was slipping up on your words. Now, I only thought about that because just then I really struggled to get my words out. So one of the key tips that I would say is if you're struggling or your mind goes blank, or you've just forgotten what you're going to say, like something's distracted you, you've been put off. It happens, it's natural. It happens to me probably about every 2 minutes when I just get a random thought buzzing in my head. You'll find that when I do presentations, I have to close everything down from my screens. I have to turn my phone the other way because I just get distracted so easily. How I can combat that, so like I said then, turn your phone on airplane mode, make sure you're really limiting all of your distractions when you do the interview. But if you're really struggling and you've just fumbled so much on this question, just by taking the time to stop, just recalibrating your thoughts and then going on again, because it might feel to you that you've paused for like a whole entity, you've spent the whole time like not speaking, but in actual fact it's probably been about 2 seconds, and there's going to be nothing against you just going, I'm going to start that again, and going on from there. We're all human, we're never going to be perfect, we're not robots. So it's absolutely fine to get flustered, and by doing all the preparation in advance, that'll hopefully help you to not get so worried and not get worked up. But if it does happen, that's fine, just stop and say, so what I meant to say was, or just by doing that is absolutely fine. So we just sometimes need to take a moment and then carrying on. Okay, great. So just on the theme again of Moy Park and how we can ensure that we're doing the best that we can, I would like you to kind of spend a couple of minutes just with an activity with me by heading to moypark.com/sustainability. So kind of put me on a little tab somewhere else, open up another tab, go to moypark.com/sustainability, and I would like to know which of Moy Park's key sustainability achievements in 2019 stood out the most to you. So I would like you to take a couple of minutes. I'm going to literally only give you a minute for you to head to moypark.com/sustainability. But hopefully that's a really good way for you to have a look and instantly do a little bit of research and awareness of what you're passionate about and how you can link that in your answers. Because if you're excited by something, if you're passionate about something, it'll come through in your interview. It's a lot easier to convey, but also like making sure that you've researched this will stand out to Moy Park, because they'll think, oh wow, they must be interested, they've read all of our things on our website, and make sure you're referencing those in their answers. So if you can say like, oh wow, well, one of the main reasons I applied to Moy Park, and particularly this role, was because of the strides that you've taken in your plastic reduction, or because of how incredible it is that you've got a zero waste to landfill, which I would love to work for an organisation that holds values similar to mine. So again, something to think about when you're doing your research is how it relates to you and what you're excited by. Okay, another way is to make sure that you're showing showing to Moy Park or showing to your employer that you're really excited by their organisation as a whole. And remembering when we're doing that research, we're thinking about the employer and we're thinking about the role. So we've thought about the role, we've thought about how we can talk about our own passions and own influences and how we can integrate that into this role that with Moy Park or what they're doing more generally. But then going back to the employer side of our research, have a look what they're doing in the news. So going onto their website, seeing new articles about them, seeing what could affect their sector. So I know that a wider issue in the UK is supply chain, and that will be something that is really affecting Moy Park. And they even have a graduate scheme on supply chain. So if you can integrate that into your answers, again, that shows that you have an awareness of not just the employer, but the sector as a whole and how your role will fit into that. So can you see it starts to make a bigger picture? So thinking about these things. And then also Moy Park specifically has a really keen awareness of their corporate social responsibility, and they're making huge kind of achievements in this, and that's why they partner with Enactus UK to help support on some of those strategies. So again, talking about that, so talking about that, you know, that they're partnered with Enactus because of the corporate social responsibility initiatives. It shows that you are aware of why Moy Park operate in the way they do and how you can fit into that. So again, something to think about with every employer, like make sure you're researching the role. And one of the most easy ways of doing this is heading to the news section in their website. Okay, we are coming towards the end, so thank you for holding on for this long. But then hopefully in summary, you can start to think about how you can be more prepared in your video interviews, the types of video interviews, and then also the questions that you could be asked. So what are your next steps? So practice. Now, your university career services could be partnered with video interview practice sites such as Shortlist Me. Now, I would really, really recommend that you use this platform, because their statistics are something like you're 55% more successful if you practice with Shortlist Me for these video interviews. So again, you can see that practice makes perfect. You can become more familiar with it so that when it comes to the real thing, you're more confident. But also, you can also use your career service for a number of things. You can do a practice interview with your careers advisors, with your kind of wider university network. They'll all be there to support you. So make sure you research into what's available for you as a student. And of course, we've talked about research. Understand the role and the employer. If that's one thing that I can take from this, is make sure you research every organisation that you're applying for and integrate this into your answers, because that's what sets you apart as a candidate. And then watch. So look at the resources on the Enactus UK YouTube channel. We have done a video insight series with graduates from Moy Park's graduate scheme to give them their insights into why they were successful, what they did in the process. So watch that. They'll give some great hints and tips, but also we have kind of 2 hours, so 2-hour-long sessions of our recordings from the Employability Fair from this year and last academic year with early careers recruiters. So the people that are delivering those sessions are the people at Moy Park who are reviewing your video interview. So again, listen to the top tips that they've got. It might take an extra couple of hours out of your day, but it will be so beneficial to helping you to get towards this next step. And then finally, use your network. So connect with people on LinkedIn in the position that you want to be in. So be sure to send a personalized connection request, because it might be that they have no idea who you are. So make sure that you say, oh, I'd really love to connect with you because I would like to apply for the Moy Park supply chain graduate position. I can see that you're in there, and I wondered if you had any hints and tips. So again, like, look at who is connected on there, like connect to the early careers people, connect to the graduates. They'll be the people who have the closest insights, and it shows again your keenness to be in that organisation and how you want to stand apart from other candidates. So utilise this. Like, I can't stress how important it is to have an up-to-date LinkedIn profile. So make sure that you see who is there, who is connected, and you'll find that there is Enactus alumni working for Moy Park. So check in with those. It's really, really important that you're utilising the connections around you. Okay, and then upcoming events, it wouldn't be an Enactus presentation if I didn't tell you about our upcoming sessions. So we also have, as part of our Employability Insights Week, we have a Enterprise Rent-A-Car Insight session. We actually have on the 1st of December an opportunity to go straight for an interview with Enterprise Rent-A-Car for their graduate scheme, which is incredible. So you can go straight into, just by being an Enactus student, you can go onto our website, you can find that scheme, you can tick, you can get an interview, and if you pass that interview, you've only got one more stage before you get into Enterprise's graduate scheme. So really, really important. And we've got a session on Monday that goes through kind of how we can utilize this and how you can make sure that you're successful as you can be into their interviews. And then we have the Discovery Centre Insight session again on Monday. This is an opportunity for you to learn about assessment centres, and in particular learn about Unilever's assessment centres, to make sure that you feel really confident with those processes. So hopefully I'll see you on those 2 sessions. But I think that is everything from me now. I told you it would be short and sweet to make sure that I gave you a chance for questions if you have any. But for now, I think that is it. So I'm going to pause the recording, but thank you so much for joining me. And if you do have any questions, my email is on the screen there.